Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Real. It's Slayer Sunday, where I will be talking about and reviewing all the episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer in order. Today I'm looking at Season 2, Episode 12, Bad Eggs. We begin the episode with Joyce and Buffy in the mall talking about an outfit Buffy wants that Joyce doesn't approve of because it's too slutty. With the shops closing soon, they separate to pick things up, and Buffy spots that cowboy hat here doesn't have a reflection. She runs up the escalator like she's on Gladiators and follows the pair into an arcade. Buffy interrupts Cowboy's fun, and they get into a fight where the vamp not only identifies her as the Slayer, but also introduces himself as Lyle Gorch. She's not in the mood to talk, but as soon as Buffy pulls out her stake, Lyle says, "See ya," and splits. When she gets back to Joyce, she realises that she didn't pick up the item she asked for, and when she says she was technically distracted by a boy, Joyce asks her to be more responsible, and into the credits we go. Xander and Cordelia are making out, but Xander would rather Cordelia didn't talk, and Cordelia would rather the lights off, thank you very much. Why is relationship? It's sex education time, where Cordelia and Xander use the teacher's questions as an opportunity to dig at one another, and we learn that Cordelia is actually the first of the Scoobies to lose her virginity. The teacher is rescued from this nightmare by Willow, who answers the question correctly, and Mr. Whitmore discusses teen pregnancy before presenting them all with their offspring. He explains that they will be teamed up with a classmate to share parenting duties, which doesn't really come up again. And while Willow tries to pick Xander and is ignored, he makes a beeline for Cordelia, who in turn grabs the nearest guy. Xander recovers swiftly by chatting up some girl. Maybe ugly knitwear brought these two together. They go to the library to give Buffy her egg because she skipped class, but she says she's not ready to be a parent, and even less so to be a single parent, because due to an odd number of students in sex ed, she doesn't get a partner. She does not take it well.
Do you know what this says about me? That I am doomed to lead my mother's life. How deeply scary is that?
Xander says the whole thing is dumb anyway, but then Buffy shows how serious she takes it when Giles nearly squishes her egg. Giles has found record of the vamp Buffy fought and says that Lyle and his brother Tector, named after characters in the 1969 movie The Wild Bunch, were mass murderers before they became vampires. He says the brothers are a bit stupid, but not to underestimate them, before he realises what's going on.
Why do you all have eggs?
Willow suggests that Buffy take Angel on patrol, but they get lots of making out done and not much patrolling. They don't notice Lyle and Tector chilling nearby, and they don't hear them plotting to kill them. Buffy puts her egg to bed that night, but when she's sleeping, it sprouts a thing that's super creepy and it reaches out and grabs her. Tector, meanwhile, is bitching that they're stuck in the sewers eating rats when he wants to go out and kill Buffy. He accuses Lyle of being scared of her and they get into a fist fight. And are these seriously the monsters of the week? They're a pair of doofuses. Buffy wakes up and everything seems normal with her egg, but she says she's not feeling well, and in school, class is cancelled because Mr. Whitmore is absent. So the gang bug Giles in the library, where Xander is much more chipper than the girls. Giles notes that they seem subdued, and Xander puts it down to how seriously they're taking their parenting duties, unlike him as he tosses his egg around and inevitably drops it. He admits to hard boiling it.
You boiled your young?
And Giles calls him out on his cheating, not noticing an egg in the bookcase. Cordelia rushes in saying that their teacher is missing and she assumes the worst. Finally! Someone is taking this shit seriously! Except she drags Xander off to go make out with her. Ugh. Back to not patrolling again, where Angel tells Buffy to go home for the night and they talk about kids. Angel says he can't have them and Buffy seems okay about that, but he questions her about her future.
Really don't care what happens a year from now, 5 years from now.
And ooh, foreshadowy. Not to get too spoilery, but something significant will happen to Buffy in both a year and 5 years' time, so have fun with that! She admits that all she cares about is him, and they make out again. A security guard is wandering the school. Wait, this place has security? When he hears a noise coming from the open basement and goes to investigate. He discovers a giant hole in the wall and crawls in like this is Jeepers Creepers, only to be attacked by Mr. Whitmore. Buffy climbs in through her window and catches her egg jiggling about, so she sticks her face right next to it, so of course a little creature pops out hitting her before it scuttles under her bed. Not to put too fine a point on it, but this would be the part where I burned the house to the ground. Buffy arms herself with the iron, but can't find the little bugger until it jumps on her and she goes after it with scissors. Once she takes it out, she phones Willow to check on her and orders her to smash her egg. Willow says her egg is fine and thinks maybe Buffy's egg was booby-trapped by the Gorches. Buffy says she's probably right, but as soon as she hangs up, we see Willow's egg is broken and she's possessed or something. Joyce comes into the room and catches Buffy not only fully dressed at nearly 3 a.m, but in a lie, so grounds her. She explains the rules and wait.
School ends at 2:30.
What? School ends at 2:30? What kind of half-day high school is this? Buffy questions Cordelia about her egg, but she says it's fine and Willow seems normal. But after Xander just tosses his snack on the ground, what's the matter with you? He decides to eat his offspring instead, which ends grossly. Buffy brings her slain creature to show and tell while Cordelia's bursts out of her bare backpack through its eyes. Ugh! She leans weird and then smacks Buffy out with Willow take out Xander. They're both dragged and dumped into the cupboard while the possessed students arm themselves with weapons they're getting from where exactly? And why is it unlocked? The zombie students head into the basement and through the hole in the wall while Joyce shows up at the library looking for Buffy. Giles peekaboos out of the cage and says Buffy hasn't been there all day, which Joyce flips out over and calls kids a burden. Ouch, that's harsh, but I'm sure not entirely inaccurate. They have a little chat, but Joyce turns away when she hears a noise and Giles sticks one of the wiggly creatures on her and she screams. The two of them join the zombie brigade and Buffy has to wake Xander up, only to find they've been left a present. But screw that noise! Buffy splats the shit into them and kicks open the door. They get to the library to find a book open to Ursula's cousin and evidence of what happened to Giles, who, like everyone else, is in the basement poking the floor with tools and collecting eggs. And oh god, what is that? Is anyone else getting Are You Afraid of the Dark vibes? Because there's an episode just like this that involves possessed zombie kids faffing with some eggs belonging to a big squishy monster. Anyway, Buffy and Xander rush out when they hear Jonathan screaming for help, but when they reach him, he says he's fine, so they follow him to the basement.
Do we really want to go in there?
We really don't.
Xander tries to blend in. Let's see, brainless, vacant, he's perfect! While Buffy goes to get a weapon, but ends up with the Gorches behind her, so they get into a fight which moves into the tunnel. Lyle wonders what's happening while Willow orders them killed, so Buffy has to defend herself and cool flip! Cordelia is heading topside with the eggs, so Xander tries to reason with her, but when that fails, he punches her out. And then Tecta gets curious about the monster, who opens its big eye and then eats him. Lyle blames Buffy for her brother's demise, and then Joyce tries to pickaxe her, so this is going well. Then the monster drags her down to eat her, but we hear a struggle, and that's it for Bazaar. Its death releases the creatures from their hosts, who all collapse, leaving Lyle at the mercy of Buffy, who climbs out of the pit looking like she had a fight with a printer, and he decides to live to vamp another day. Everyone comes out of the basement very confused, and Giles spins some story about it being a gas leak, and Buffy checks on Joyce, who rants at her for not being where she was supposed to be, and confines her to her room until further notice. The episode ends with her technically sticking to the rules. Right, so yeah, we need to talk about this episode because it's pretty universally labelled as bad, and I agree. But having rewatched it, it's probably not going to fall into my worst episode spot for my season 2 wrap-up, because it didn't have the same major story holes as some assembly required, nor did I have the same visceral creeped out feeling that I had watching the previous episode, Ted. But let's start with the bad points, and believe me, there's quite a few. Joyce is a bit of a dick in this episode, and I know she's a struggling single parent, but while they captured that in School Hard, they seem to have overdone it in this episode. The episode is altogether a little too goofy, with the aforementioned Are You Afraid of the Dark episode covering the same bonkers plot in half the runtime, and I have many questions about Bazaar. Like, why is it under the floor and how did Mr. Whitmore stumble upon it? In some episodes I find the research scenes tells us information we already know, but in this case we could have done with a bit more informative book learning. These eggs were obviously given to Whitmore's class, but why were they also in the library? And if Whitmore put them there, why didn't he put them in more places to infect more people? There's not really a wrap-up telling us what happened to the eggs or how they could have possibly destroyed them all, or did they just die when Bazaar did? There were some inconsistencies in people's behaviour, like Willow for example. Why did she act totally normal most of the time and only turn into a mindless murder drone when the plot demanded it? Same goes for Giles and Cordelia. Do these creatures just decide how much they're going to possess someone? I feel we had a couple of missed opportunities here. As much as I wasn't a big fan of Teacher's Pet, Natalie French left behind some eggs that never got resolved, and now we have a whole new set of eggs without much explanation, except for they came from the creature under the basement floor. I can't help but think maybe they should have tied it to Natalie somehow, or not had a cliffhanger ending in that episode that never got picked up again. The Gorges were a waste here and felt like they were two completely separate episodes Frankenstein together. The Gorges had nothing to do with Bazaar, didn't offer much of a challenge for Buffy, and in fact, Tector was only there to complain a lot and get eaten. These two could have been better utilised as major antagonists, but instead they were relegated to mild comic relief in an episode they don't even belong in. I know Lyle makes an appearance again, but these two could have had their own established episode, which ended with Buffy killing Tector, which would have given Lyle a more realistic reason for wanting revenge on her. But let's look at the good points too, and yes, there are some. In contrast to the previous episode where he was the most affected by the drugged food, Xander is now the least affected because he chose to boil his egg like he was on Taskmaster. Although I'm not a fan of Xander, he continues to show his caring nature, which is not always prominent due to his goofy demeanour. But you can often catch it in the background of scenes like when he protects people where there's a threat, or he'll try words before violence. We once again have a real topic at the heart of this episode, responsibility, and while the execution is a little goofy, it does sow the seeds for events to come, and also gives me a nostalgic throwback to having a baby to be responsible for in high school, even though mine was a sack of flour. I've also got to say, for a show with some pretty shocking CGI from time to time, we've got some damn good practical effects here, from Bazor's eye to the little parasite creatures, so props to Damian Fisher for making it happen. Because even though the story isn't great, the effects sell it so much better. I mean, okay, look at these tentacles compared to these terrible CGI ones in the Enterprise episode Fox Solar 4 years later. Both episodes are kind of a joke, but good effects can make a big difference. Many crushed eggs aside, we have 2 more deaths for our list. One vampire, Tector Gorge, who got eaten by Bazaar, and our first monster this season, Bazaar herself, who Buffy smushed from the inside out. So that brings our running total to 10 humans, 3 transformations, 23 vampires, 1 zombie, 1 mummy, 3 demons, and 1 monster. So there you have it. That was Bad Eggs. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot. Or consider subscribing if you want more videos like this one. Thank you so much for watching, I'll speak to you soon, and don't let the vampires bite.